This is something that is a true test to, can you measure to the 16th of an inch? Okay? I constantly am getting bombarded with interruptions. People need this fixed, or they need something from the shop, or this or that. So I'm going to try to do more where the beginning 10 minutes or so, 10 or 15, I'll put it on video. I'll put it on either TeacherTube, YouTube, not just the drawing, but the things that I need to cover every day that I don't want kids to miss. That way, when the kid comes in the next day and says, what did I miss? I'll say, watch the little 10-minute video or whatever on TeacherTube or YouTube, and everybody will get a chance to see that then. This, page 79, is the same as what you have on the pink sheet and the green sheet that you keep at your desk. It's just awkward to have the book open always, so I am going to put it on paper so that you can just keep it at your desk to be able to see it without having to have the book out. Okay, when we practice title blocks, here's things I look for. Do you know the difference between a guideline and a borderline? Do you know the difference between an object line? If you look in the book, there's an entire chapter on the alphabet of lines showing the different types of lines. On page 67, it gives examples of every type of line. Turn your book back to 67. Every type of line as an example, and it's marked in the book. This is a border line. This is a center line, a dimension line, an extension line. Okay? An extension line extends out from the object, but it does not touch it. It's a little thinner than a border line, but a little darker than a visible object line. It shows that a dimension goes from this point to this point. Okay? Dimension lines have an arrowhead with a break in the middle with the dimension. When I say the dimension, I've been having you put depth, width, or height. There may be a D for depth, a W for width, an H for height. Normally you would have a number in there. This is 3 inches across here. Okay? This is 3/4 inches across here. Everybody at one point should look at page 67 so that they can see the different types of lines. Some we have not talked about before, like a cutting plane line. If you look on 67, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. 67, right in the center is a cutting plane line. This, I gave you an example of that on that manual for the Volkswagen engine, and I said, this is showing what the inside of the engine looks like, because you can't see inside the engine. They use a cutting plane line showing if you were to take and cut the object right at that line, this is what you would see. Okay? So, if you look over to the right-hand view there then, it has a section line, and the line's drawn at a 45-degree angle. They're called cross-hatched lines. They represent any place that would have been cut by the saw as it was cutting that. Okay? Cutting plane line. Extension line again. Construction lines are very light. Okay? I have said that you have to have 2 pencils. Every day 2 pencils. A sharp one and a dull one. Technically you should have a 3B and a 4H. 4H for all your layout work. Very hard-leaded pencil. Barely leaves a line on the paper. A 3B to do all your darkening of your border lines, object lines. This is something like you can spend ages going into, but I kind of just touch on it and say, well, this is roughly what you need to know. Everybody should have looked at 67 and know the different types of lines. 66 has examples of the lines, of what they look like. And it starts actually on 65 under drafting techniques, the alphabet of lines. Goes through every one of the types of lines and gives examples. Okay? We used to have to do lettering for probably 3 or 4 weeks. All I say on the lettering is there's a chapter on lettering in the book, and the font is called single stroke Gothic. When I say the font, single stroke Gothic is kind of like all capital letters. If you just did all caps, you would be fine with that. Okay? Here's an example of it. Lettering, the single stroke Gothic alphabet. The American National Standards Institute recommends that single stroke Gothic alphabet be the accepted lettering standard. It can be drawn rapidly and is highly legible. Then it gives examples of each type of letter, all capitals. There is vertical single stroke Gothic where the lines are going straight up and down. Look on page 112, please. And there is inclined single stroke Gothic. That's where there's a little bit of an angle to it. You generally can see in someone's lettering if they have been to college and done any engineering or architecture. You can look at their lettering and go, I can tell this person has done some engineering, architecture. There is sample pages in there, page 113. We may do 1 or 2 days of sample lettering just to get you in the hang of it. But there again, it's something you spend weeks or months on if you're in college for that. Okay, there they give some examples. They also have like rub-off letters. Most of this stuff was from before they had computer-aided drafting. And then there's pages of sample lettering. The quick red fox jumped over the lazy brown dog. That's the same phrase we used to have to do back when I was in high school because it used every letter except they forgot the S. You should add an S to that to make it every letter of the alphabet on the quick red fox. Jumped over the lazy brown dog. Then that brings us, that's just kind of a review of it. Multi-view drawings then. Okay. Page 128, it gives all 6 views of the object laid out. And I've shown you that example before of the flat paper that we laid out like you see on page 128, 129. Transferring points on 130. This is just kind of a reminder, a review for some of you. Some of you may have seen some of this for the first time. Centering the drawing on the sheet on 131. Okay, now for 3 title blocks, I'm going to show you how you can do them quickly and neatly. Okay, back to page 6. Was that on 70? 79. Okay, look at the title blocks here. It says the top space is 1/16 of an inch, and the bottom space is 1/16 of an inch. All the other spaces are 1/8 of an inch. Okay? I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that. If you just remember on the ruler to go every small mark, that will save it every time. Okay, let's see if I can be done in 7 minutes with my border and 3 title blocks minimum. Okay? I'm going to use this piece of paper, even though it's a little bit, it's got a little bit of writing on it, but I try to save paper whenever I can. And it's even got a little rip in there, but that's okay. Angled a little bit. I can fix that, I think. Straighten that up. Biggest thing is make sure that it's taped down straight on your T-square. So I do my 1/2 inch border first. I forgot to lock the drafting machine back in place. Okay. I'll just line it back up with the paper, then lock it. Normally, on the drafting machine, you can use the upright on there, but this one won't quite reach where I could get it over the camera. So I'm just going to use, the triangle to make my uprights. Okay? So I marked there 1/2 inch. Now, this paper has a little bit of marks around the edge of it, but that's okay because we're not using the edge anyway. That's kind of why we do the border and the title block. Okay, 1/2 inch on the top. Now, it doesn't matter if there's writing on there because all my writing is outside of the border. Hanson, can I borrow your ruler, please?
Yep.
Okay. Here's the time saver for doing title blocks. On this activity, rather than doing one, measuring it, and then doing another one, lay them all out at once. Okay, so I go title block number 1 is going to be right